We're still talking about buyer qualification. Buyer qualification. But this time, we're going to talk about a minimum income question. We're going to talk about a minimum income question. In other words, how much must someone make if they're going to afford a particular property? So we'll call this a minimum income. The first one we looked at was maximum housing expense. The good thing about it is on these questions having to do with the finance questions, you're still going to use the same T-bar. So I'm just going to set them up. Now keep in mind, out of these variables here, we're going to have to give you some of them in the setup. So you're typically going to have at least 2 of the variables. On the back end, you may end up having 3 variables because you have to have the long-term debt as well. So what I often tell students to do is when you get these problems that seem like they're difficult, if you will simply memorize your T-bars on these and then just start plugging numbers in and hope something good happens. Now, right now, I'm just making the numbers up, and it's fine. I'll give you some problems like this so that you can practice them, and I'll do a walkthrough of those with you. But for right now, I'm just going to make this up. In this case, if we're looking for the minimum income, what we're actually looking for is this number right here, your gross monthly income. And then, of course, if it asks for annual, you'll just multiply it by 12. But notice, if you know what you're looking for, you know what to be looking for in the problem. The problem is going to tell you how much the housing expense is. Well, you found a house that's going to require a payment of $2,100. PITI, remember, okay? The bank wants you to qualify based on a 28% ratio, not an uncommon ratio there for conventional loans. And you know from the problem that we're looking for the gross monthly income. So in this particular case, on the front end, like I say, you plug stuff in, you hope something good happens. So boom, boom, 2,100 divided by 28% or 0.28. I have my calculator here. Let me run the number on that. Divided by 0.28. So based on this front end, we get a number of $7,500. You're like, okay, I don't know what 75 is. Oh, yes, you do. Just go back here and look at your formula. Your formula said that what you're looking for is a gross monthly income. So to afford a payment of $2,100 a month of PITI, then he must make at least $7,500 a month. And if we took that out to 12 months, it looks like that would be $90,000 a year. But keep in mind, we haven't taken into consideration his debt yet. So let's come down here and let's say this. This same person that we're talking about here, his house payment is going to be $2,100 if he's going to buy this house. As it turns out, this guy has a couple of car payments and some student debt. So he has $800 in other debt, $800 in other monthly debt. Well, again, we're playing a little Sesame Street here. This is going to be the same at the bottom. The GMI ratio is technically going to be the same idea, but it's going to be a different number because since we're talking about the back end, the ratio is going to be a little bit higher. It gives you a little more room for other debt. So in this case, what we have is 2,900 divided by 36%. So let's take 2,900 divided by 0.36. Let me go to my calculator here. 2,900, because remember 2,900 because it now includes the long-term debt on the back end, divided by 0.36, the higher ratio, and we get $8,056 roughly. I rounded that off. It came out to a few digits beyond that. But okay, so now we've got this situation here. The bank's looking at this guy and he's like, well, let's see, how much does he qualify for? Well, when you're doing a minimum income question, the logic applies here very similar to the way it did in the maximum loan amount question. If it's minimum income, the bank is going to require the higher number. Remember, a bank would rather loan money to somebody that makes more money than less. So in this particular case, he's going to need to make $8,000 per month. So it looks like 96,600, almost 100 grand. In both of these cases, it's interesting that it was the back end number that ended up being the solution. It's not always that way. But what it tells me about this person is they have a little too much debt in the bank's eyes. And so the bank's like, we'll finance you. You're just going to have to make more money to get the same payment as you would have if you didn't have any debt. So what you've seen here are the buyer qualification problems. We're going to give you a handful of problems to do for a homework. And then after practicing those and using the T-bar, this is one of the ones that I would highly recommend that you use the T-bar on a regular basis on these.